There's a place the prairie forgets, where time gathers like dust and sorrow sits quiet on the wind. That's where Clarabelle lived, just past the last fence post of Ash Hollow. Folks called her Clay, a name pressed onto her like a brand after her father, once the town's preacher, hanged himself in the chapel loft. They said shame had driven him to it, and they said she was the source. She never spoke in her own defense. Her silence became her border, her shield. Clara's days passed in measured silence, feeding chickens, tending her bruised garden, stitching what could be salvaged from what had been ruined. Her hands, leathered and lean, moved with a precision that came from years of doing everything herself. She spoke to animals, never people. They didn't ask questions. They didn't echo judgment. That afternoon, as the sun bled low across the sky, Clara made her way to the creek bed with a tin pail, drawn by the hope of finding the last trickle of spring water. She passed through sagebrush and dry grass, boots crunching softly. The wind carried nothing but cicada song and the smell of scorched earth. Then she heard it, faint, panicked thrashing. Not the sound of an animal, but something raw, human. She dropped the pail and followed the noise, parting brush until she saw him, a boy, maybe 12, buried up to the chest in quicksand. His arms flailed weakly, mouth parted in silent desperation. His hair clung to his forehead in wet strands, and his eyes met haze, wide with the terror of someone who understood he was dying. She moved without thinking, scanning the dry bank for a sturdy branch. A length of willow nearby would do. She stripped off her overshirt and crawled belly-first toward the pit, holding the branch out. "Take it," she rasped. The boy reached, missed, tried again. Fingers caught wood. She gritted her teeth and pulled, anchoring herself with her legs. Her muscles strained. Her shoulders screamed in protest. The quicksand clung to him like it wanted to swallow a secret. She pulled harder. With a final heave, he broke free, sliding onto dry land, shaking, gasping. They lay side by side, the boy coughing mud, Clara breathless and still. After a long moment, he sat up. "Toma," he said, pointing to himself. Then, tapping his chest, and then his, he whispered, "Oh." She nodded slowly. He stayed a second longer, then limped off into the dusk. 3 days later, Clara was burying a dead hen near her fence line when the earth began to tremble. A low thunder rolled from the hills. She looked up, and her breath caught. A line of riders stretched across the horizon, dust rising behind them. At the front, Thomas sat tall on a painted horse. Beside him rode a towering man with eyes like flint and a face carved from storm. 100 Comanche warriors followed, silent and steady, as they rode toward Clara's home. The riders came without war cries, without threat, only silence thick enough to smother breath. Clara stood motionless, dirt on her palms, a broken egg in her apron. The lead warrior dismounted, a tall man draped in buffalo hide, face marked with black ochre, dignity in every movement. He said nothing, just stepped forward, reached into a deerskin pouch, and pulled out 2 items, an eagle feather and an obsidian blade. He knelt before Clara and placed both at her feet with reverence. Behind him, the warriors mirrored the gesture with their stillness, like the land itself had paused to watch. The boy, Tama, remained mounted, but his gaze held hers, not with childlike gratitude, but something ancient, ancestral. The tall man rose and bowed. Then they left, as swift and wordless as they'd come, hooves fading like thunder over distant plains. The town noticed. Ash Hollow always noticed. By morning, whispers bloomed like rot, Indians on her land, Clara inviting devils into good Christian country. Sheriff boat came by, wide in the shoulders, teeth yellow with tobacco. He stayed on his horse and spoke like he was throwing stones. "You play host to redskins. You best be ready to answer for what they do." He spat. "You think they owe you, but you ain't got a say in how a Comanche pays a debt." Clara didn't answer. She only lifted her chin, eyes steady, hands calm. The sheriff left angrier than he'd arrived. Later, they came again. Not warriors this time, but 3. Toma, a younger girl with hawk feathers, and a man close to Clara's age, tall, watchful, quiet as dust. He introduced himself in a low, deliberate voice. Lone Finch. He came often in the following days, bringing herbs, pelts, carved bone. Clara offered tea, balms, silence. She taught him names of roots in English. He taught her in Comanche. Their words grew like moss, slow, sparse, alive. They didn't touch, not deliberately, but their gestures softened. He sat beside her as she crushed yarrow. She watched how he listened, not to reply, but to remember. One night, smoke crept up from the barn. She ran barefoot, heart pounding. Flames licked the sky. The roof had collapsed in on the hay, fires swallowing everything. She screamed for the maize colt, still inside. She lunged through smoke, stumbled, coughed hard. A hand caught her wrist, pulled her back. She fell into him, Lone Finch, eyes wild, arms around her like roots around stone. They stood watching the fire die. The colt did not make it. The next morning, someone had etched the word traitor into her front door with a knife. She did not cry. She only lit a candle beside the blade and feather resting on her mantle and left it burning through the night. Word of the fire spread faster than the smoke had. By sundown, half the town had decided Clara had brought it on herself. The other half muttered behind curtains, eyes shaded with fear or envy. No one could tell the difference anymore. Clara didn't answer the knocks, nor the stays when she rode into town for salt and lye. She walked through their silence like a ghost with weight. That evening, the Comanche prepared to leave. The debt, Red Hawk told her through Lone Finch, had been on it. They had protected her, stood witness. The feather and blade were tokens returned, the bond closed. Clara nodded, but her eyes met Lone Finch's, and neither looked away. At dawn, Sheriff Boat came back, this time with a posse behind him, men from town, rifles slung like accusations. He rode slow, savoring the authority, the attention. Clara waited on her porch, unarmed, hands folded. Lone Finch stood beside her, quiet as ever, a wall built from calm and fire. Word is your savages are riding out today, Boak said. Good. Let them. But I'll say it plain. They step one toe near Ash Hollow again, there'll be blood. Lone Finch didn't flinch. Clara did not blink. You think you're safe now? Boak sneered. Think any of this changes who you are? You're still the girl who brought shame to her daddy's grave. She stepped forward, bare feet brushing dust. Her voice, when it came, was low and even. My father's shame was his own. The words fell like iron. It was the first time many of them had heard her speak since the hanging. Boak blinked. The posse shifted, uncertain. Silence swelled again, tense, breathless. Behind her, the riders appeared on the ridge. Red Hawk and his warriors, lined like a storm at rest, watching. They carried no weapons drawn, just presence, just truth. Clara didn't turn to them. She stepped off the porch and faced the sheriff alone. You came for a fight, but I have nothing left to bang. The child of the local blacksmith, sickly, rail-thin, walked from behind the sheriff and placed a dandelion on Clara's porch, then turned and ran, a small, golden defiance. Boak's jaw tightened. He looked at the crowd. They were watching him now, not with loyalty, but with uncertainty, with shame. He spat and turned his horse. By dusk, the tribe was gone, all but Lone Finch. He stayed, wordless, unpacking his saddle beside her garden. Clara didn't ask. He didn't explain. There was no need. Weeks passed. The door carvings faded under weather and ash. The barn was rebuilt. Children came again, sick mothers too. They came for her salves, her silence, her steadiness. One night, she found Lone Finch sitting where the quicksand once was, the earth dry and still. He handed her a single white bead and a sprig of sage. She took them, and for the first time in years, she smiled. The desert, after all, forgets nothing, but it does forgive.